I thought today, in particular, it was really more about, us not getting to the level 5, too many dips. I thought that caused a lot of inconsistency in our defensive effort. With that being said, still holding them to 63. We just thought we just had too many dips. I thought, at the end of the game, we couldn't get the rebounds, we couldn't get the stops that we needed to get. But overall, I thought we made some plays that we needed to make. It wasn't pretty. It was not a pretty game at all. We just played against a really good St. Joseph team, especially offensively. We got to do a better job. We got to stop fouling as much, and a lot of that is just our inconsistency and attention to detail. So we got to do a little bit better job than that. Again, and typically when we play as hard as we want to play, which I thought we had spurts today, and then we kind of kicked our own selves in the foot, whether it was a unexplainable turnover or a bad decision offensively. I thought we kind of a lot of it is they took advantage of our mistakes. So a lot to work on. Don't have too much time to think about this one, as we got to get prepared for a Hofstra team coming in here that's playing extremely well. So we got to prepare for that. But again, I thought overall my main thing was our energy level and our tension energy level wasn't there today. And but we made some shots and we made some free throws that we needed to make, enough to come away with the win.
Coach, how do you think those 9 days off maybe helped you guys, but also maybe took away some of that momentum from last week?
Yeah, I think that the layoff was definitely played a part in that. You could just tell some of our guys were breathing a little hard. We had a couple of guys that wasn't feeling their best, a little bit under the weather. No excuse though. People have played this game sick. We talked about that, but I thought the layoff definitely, having a 9 or 10 day layoff, that we had to that was a challenge as well, but no excuse.
Adrian got out rebounded tonight, like 10. Aside from William Kyle, how concerned are you with the overall rebound?
Well, it's a concern, from the beginning of the year. We have to battle. A lot of that is, our guards got to do a better job of rebounding. I thought JJ got in there and did some, but Nate George, he needs to get some rebounds. Kyan has to do a better job in there. Sadiq, we just, again, our energy level was not there today. And again, when you look at that difference, a lot of it came in some crucial times, at the end of the game where, we get a stop, we get them to miss, and we just can't get the ball. So we got to do a better job of that. Again, it all goes back to our level 5, and it was not there today, not there at all.
Nate Kings and Tyler Betsy had pretty good games tonight. Like, what makes those guys so great for the system that you want to play with?
They're versatile defenders. They're in the spots that they need to be in. They are Tyler Betsy is probably one of the more improved defenders. That wasn't really his reputation. Coming out of high school, he was a guy that could shoot the ball. And he's made tremendous strides. He's worked on his body. So, but in particular, Nate Kings, he's a guy that can, he gets hits on screens. He doesn't stop, keeps moving. So again, those two guys, and then for us, they can shoot the ball on the offensive end as well. And they are actually doing a good job of going their game of getting to the basket. Again, I know, Brett. The free throw thing is, but. We'll keep working and we'll get better at that. We will. We'll get better at that.
So going back to Betsy, he had a lot of big shots tonight. What were you seeing from him on the offensive end?
I thought he stayed away from those long twos. I thought he took the extra dribble and kind of got closer to the basket, and he used his strength. He made some real strong moves, and I thought that was a difference. I thought him, obviously using his shot fake and being able to get to the basket under control was really good for us. And like you said, he made some big shots down the stretch for us.
When you look at the offensive end, where do you kind of draw that line of being aggressive and trying to attack the rack like you like to, but getting in there in the first half, you're getting in there and turning the basketball over?
Yeah, we again, we were not sharp at all. As far as getting in there, we knew the type of defense that they would play. We knew we would get into the paint. We had to make better decisions, and we didn't really do that. as much. You know, I thought we made some plays when we needed to make them, but you know, we got to get better with that. You know, it was a different look that we hadn't seen in a while. So you know, we got to get better at getting in there, getting to the paint, finishing off a two, getting the two, and being strong with the ball. You know, I thought, you know, they knocked the ball out of our hands a couple of times in the first half, and you know, we can't have that. We got to be stronger with the ball and play off of 2 feet. You know, we had a couple of not strong finishes that, you know, we talked about, and we wanted to stay away from that, and we kind of got pulled into that trap.
Adrian, you mentioned free throws earlier. Are you concerned that as these games are going on, teams are going to put you on the line or purposely put you on the line?
Sure. I mean, you know, that was where we had that offense-defense at the end of the game today. You know, and you know, even though, you know, I mean, Will stepped up and made 6 for 9 today, so that was good to see. But you know, I mean, we'll get better. We just, these guys shoot the ball a lot better than we're doing right now. Even from the 3-point range, you know, we'll get better with that. And you know, I really put a lot of focus on, you know, what we're doing on a defensive end, and then on offensively, just making the right shots and making the right passes. I thought we missed a couple of people today that we could get some open looks for. You know, we can't miss certain guys, and we got to do a better job of that.
Brad, this was a night, you mentioned you struggled to get to level 5, 9 o'clock tip, snowy night, not a great crowd. So on nights like this, how do you kind of self-start and get that team to where it needs to be?
Yeah, that's at the juicing station. Again, the juicing station wasn't at a level 5 today. And, you know, this is the second game in a row, right? You know, 9 o'clock start, you know, and, you know, we've had some energy, some juice, some energy level 5 issues. So we got to work on that. And I think we got a couple more during the season. So, you know, that's something that we'll address and continue to push and work. But, you know, again, this is always going to be a tough game for us. I knew it. You know, when you see the schedule, you get 9 days off, and a team that has, you know, has been in the rhythm. They've played 2 or 3 games, and they've been playing well. So we knew they would come in here confident. The same thing as Autry, you know. So I'm glad we, you know, kind of, you know, did what we needed to do. Obviously, you know, you got to continue to get better. You know, we 8 games in, so I mean, you know, 9 games in. We got, you know, got to get better. We got to continue to get better.
Going back to that 9-day stretch without a game, just how did you kind of balance, you know, giving maybe the guys some time off after that crazy stretch you had and getting back to work and refining things?
Yeah, you know, it was, you know, they had finals, so guys had exams. You know, we went through that rough stretch coming from Vegas and then coming back and playing Tennessee. So, you know, we try to have that balance of trying to get to some rest and also, you know, being mindful of, you know, these guys had some exams. So it was a challenging 9 days, to say the least, as far as just like, you know, being able to balance that student athlete balance and, you know, finals and things like that. But again, everyone deals with it. We just got to do it. You know, we got to do a better job. And, you know, like I said, a couple of our guys were under the weather, so they you know, they've been struggling with that. So again, I think you know, I think this game will get us going now.
Coach, you guys shot a season low 14 threes. Was that intentional or just kind of how the game kind of played out?
You know, I think the way their defense was, I thought they really were aggressive on Tyler Betsy and Nate King. So whenever we did get those kickouts, those driving kicks, they did a good job of showing it and getting to the basket. You know, we want to take the best shots possible. You know, and that's something that we're going to continue to try to do. So again, you know, we knew that we could, you know, get into the paint a little bit and put pressure on the rim, which we always try to do, to soften up the defense. So, you know, that was really more of, you know, what the defense gave us.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.